Do you remember that episode of Fawlty Towers where some building work is required on the hotel and Basil decides to hire the cheapest possible builder against Sybil's instructions? She goes off to play some golf. The building work ensues and it's very shoddy. Several things happen. And eventually, Sybil encounters Mr. O'Reilly, or Mr. Orderly, as I think Manuel called him. Mr. O'Reilly, the shoddy builder. And she asks him about the shoddy building work, and his response is very upbeat. And at one stage, in response to her questions, he begins to smile. And Sybil says to him, "You think I'm joking, don't you?" And Basil, realising what's about to happen, puts his head in his hands and says, "Oh, don't smile." And then, as I recall, Sybil sets about the builder with, I think, an umbrella. All of this came to mind yesterday and again today, watching the clip of Boris Johnson refusing to respond to a question about the party that took place in Downing Street on May the 20th, 2020. There was an email from his principal private secretary to over 100 employees of Number 10. It reads, "Hi all. After what's been an incredibly busy period, it would be nice to make the most of the lovely weather and have some socially distanced drinks in the Number 10 garden this evening. Please join us from 6 p.m. and bring your own booze." Now, this clip, we played it on the show last night after the news broke from Paul Brand at ITV. And unfortunately, on the radio, you can't see the smile. Like Mr. O'Reilly, Boris Johnson smiles when he's asked whether he and his wife attended this party. This party that took place during lockdown, when we'd just been told not to see any more than one person outside our household outdoors. Boris Johnson smiled. This is what he said.
I want to ask you about the latest allegations on Christmas parties. Did you and Carrie attend the Downing Street party that was organised by Martin Reynolds on the 20th of May?
All that, as you know, is the subject of a proper investigation by Sue Gray.
I'm saying he smiled. Maybe he smirked. That's certainly the point of view of COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice UK. They tweeted, "When those of us who've lost loved ones heard of yet another party, this time evidenced with an email, many of us cried tears of anger, pain and frustration. When the Prime Minister was questioned on it, he laughed, smiled and smirked." Boris Johnson has unusually not been available today to do interviews or even his pooled clip for all broadcasters. He's left it to other people to speak on his behalf. Labour managed to get an urgent question in the House of Commons today, and instead of Boris Johnson answering it, it was the Paymaster General Michael Ellis.
He takes this matter very seriously, as does everyone in government.
He takes this matter very seriously, as does everyone in government. Which makes you wonder why Boris Johnson was smirking.
I want to ask you about the latest allegations on Christmas parties. Did you and Carrie attend the Downing Street party that was organised by Martin Reynolds on the 20th of May?
All that, as you know, is the subject of a proper investigation by Sue Gray.
Now, the next question that occurs to me is, why not simply say whether or not you attended the party? How on earth would Sue Gray's inquiry into all the parties at Downing Street, how on earth would that be undermined by you simply confirming whether or not you attended one of them? Why is he so unwilling to say? And it's not just me that has this concern. The former Scottish Conservative Party leader, Ruth Davidson, tweeted, "This line won't survive 48 hours. Nobody needs an official to tell them if they were at a boozy shindig in their own garden. People are rightly furious. They sacrificed so much, visiting sick or grieving relatives, funerals. What TF were any of these people thinking?" The current Scottish Tory leader, Douglas Murray, has called on Boris Johnson to confirm now whether he was at the Bring Your Own Booze party. He said, "We should not have to wait until PMQs tomorrow. We should hear the answer now." And we'll be talking to Douglas Murray in the course of this programme. Douglas Ross, I beg your pardon. Do you remember announcing that first lockdown? And he's used the expression more than once since then. Boris Johnson talks about, I'm going to level with you, the British people. I'm going to level with you. And yet he's refusing to level with us on this. And my other concern is that there doesn't seem to have been any attempt by Downing Street during all of this saga to level with us about any of it. This information comes out in a piecemeal fashion, thanks usually to leaks and journalists reporting things that Downing Street would otherwise not want us to know. We began to learn about gatherings, didn't we? Perhaps work gatherings, it was said. And then there was at least one quiz, a Christmas party or two. And instead of being candid with people, instead of levelling with the British people, you get the impression that Downing Street simply wants to find an explanation that fits whatever small facts are in the public domain, rather than levelling with us. Then we got the video from the Downing Street briefing room with Allegra Stratton and others. Then the photograph of the cheese and wine. And at every turn, explanations to fit whatever facts have somehow managed to make it into the public domain. And now an email invitation to a party. Several people say Boris Johnson was there on the night of May the 20th, 2020. Less than an hour after the Cabinet Minister, Oliver Dowden, and we had his news conference live on this programme, urged us to limit contact with other people. You can meet one person outside of your household in an outdoor public place, provided that you stay 2 metres apart. And then, within an hour, another party outside. By the way, it's emerged, some video footage today, that the day after the party, Boris Johnson made sure he was seen outside the front door of Downing Street, visibly clapping for carers. He didn't tell us about the party the day before, but he did clap for carers on the front doorstep of Downing Street, while out the back, party had been taking place. As I say, he has not done interviews today. This morning's broadcast round was with Edward Arga. This afternoon in the Commons, the Paymaster General, Michael Ellis. And the recurring theme that I'm hearing from people today is that many of them are lost for words. People have been saying there are no words. I'm dumbfounded. I have no words. Well, Boris Johnson's had the benefit of a very expensive education. And I too am a bit lost for words, so I thought I'd go back through some of the things he's written, some of the way he's described other people, to see, is there any word in his lexicon? He knows a lot of Greek. Is there anything he's said about other people that would apply to how he is today over this? Could we describe him as a tank-topped bum boy? Well, no, you should never describe anyone that way. And there's fairly substantial evidence that that really doesn't apply to him, although I never want to see him in a tank top. Could we say, as he did about Liverpudlians in 2004, could we say that he's hooked on grief? No, we probably couldn't, although there's been a lot of grief in this country during his handling of the pandemic. 150,000 and more COVID dead in this country, the first in Europe to pass that milestone. Could we call Boris Johnson a flag-waving pickaninny? Could we say he has a watermelon smile? No, probably not. Could we call him a bank robber? What about a letterbox? I've done a lot of searching, and I think the closest I've come, and you tell me whether this is a good description of him. In 1995, writing about blue-collar or working-class British men, he had this to say, and you tell me whether you think this applies to Boris Johnson. This was Boris Johnson in 1995 talking about blue-collar British men. Quote, "He is likely to be drunk, criminal, aimless, feckless, and hopeless." You tell me. 0345 6060 973. Or maybe we should simply refer back to Sybil Fawlty. Where is she when you need her with her umbrella? Here's what she said to Mr. O'Reilly, the errant builder. Maybe this applies to Boris Johnson. I've seen more intelligent creatures lying on their backs at the bottom of ponds. I've seen better organised creatures than you running around farmyards with their heads cut off. Now collect your things and get out. Julie says, my daughter has had to miss so much precious time with her brother who has a terminal illness. She's struggling, but she keeps following the rules to protect others. The sheer arrogance and lack of empathy here by our leaders is very hard to take. Our son was so upset that his hospice group for young people had to close at the time. Today he sees that Johnson et al. Were bringing their own booze to garden parties. It's genuinely painful. What about you? You can text 84850. I want to bring Chris Cook into the conversation, senior reporter at the Financial Times. Welcome, Chris. I saw a tweet from you earlier. I hate to be a one-trick pony, but the Cabinet Office as a whole and the PM's private office, not just this one's, in particular, routinely break the law. Tell us more.
So, as a reporter, one of the tools that I'm keenest on using is the Freedom of Information Act, which is a law that, along with a few other bits of law, give people the right to find out about information the government holds. And the Cabinet Office, as a sort of central part of Whitehall, is often a target for people getting information. So, for example, the Cabinet Office is who you would ask if you're trying to find out about, parts of the government's pandemic strategy, or they're also the people you'd ask about the Prime Minister's flat renovations. They do a lot of sort of cross-government work too. But the problem is that the Cabinet Office is routinely and frankly, as a matter of policy, it lies to people who make these requests. It lies to courts when people take them to court. It lies continuously in order to maintain secrecy. It has a sort of almost, impulsive desire to keep secrets. And if it's necessary to lie to the public to keep those secrets, it very cheerily does it. And you'll never get in trouble as a Cabinet Office civil servant for lying to protect a minister or to keep a secret.
To be clear, you're saying the Cabinet Office, not just under Boris Johnson, but the Cabinet Office routinely lies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let me give you a recent example, right? So recently I thought, actually, I'll have a look at the information they pulled together to look into the paying for Boris Johnson's flat renovation, right? So I asked the Cabinet Office for details of the stuff they basically passed to Lord Geit. And you know what? They could have come back and they could have said, actually, that's under review at the moment. We'll release bits to you. There are a whole range of ways they could have said no to me without lying. What they did instead was they denied they'd ever had the information, right? So this information that, according to Lord Geit's report, they passed to Lord Geit, they denied to me that they had a copy of, that they knew anything about it. They literally deny they have any details about the renovation that they themselves funded and organised of his flat. And it's not, to be clear, these aren't just sort of slips, these aren't mistakes, these happen again and again. There's a really extreme example I can give you. Back in 2015, so before this government, there was a terrible case where it was actually the Department of Health. The Cabinet Office is involved, but it's the Department of Health who are the people being asked for information. The Department of Health was asked for the details of the Health Secretary's diary because people wanted to see who's lobbying him. Now, this is totally core, inoffensive FOI stuff. Alex Allen, who was the Prime Minister's advisor on ethics and the ministerial code, who was a Cabinet Office person, was sent in to a courtroom to say in front of a judge that if members of the public could see ministers' diaries, ministers would start filling their diaries with pointless meetings so that people wouldn't think they were lazy. Now, a judge treated that with the absolute contempt that it deserves, because it's obviously a lie. This is not a reasonable, good faith interpretation of the law. This is someone who's just saying whatever it takes to keep a secret because their ministers want to keep a secret. And the Cabinet Office has this role across Whitehall in basically pushing other bits of government to be secretive. And if necessary, they will say whatever it takes to get through, keep those secrets. It's compulsive. They are compulsive liars when it comes to these laws.
So your experience in dealing with all of that over the years, how does it colour your view of, do we still have the Boris Johnson clip of this when he is asked a question about whether he attended the party?
I want to ask you about the latest allegations on Christmas parties. Did you and Carrie attend the Downing Street party that was organised by Martin Reynolds on the 20th of May?
All that, as you know, is the subject of a proper investigation by Sue Gray.
How does your experience colour your view of all of this, Chris?
So the big point about all of this is there are no adults in the background who will make sure people are telling the truth. There's not someone in secret in the background who's saying this is outrageous. How can you possibly allow this thing to happen? How can you make these ridiculous claims? If lies are being told, the Cabinet Office will supply support to ministers to lie. They will supply support to ministers to keep secrets. You will not lose your job. You will not do badly in the Cabinet Office for being caught in a lie if the lie is to protect a minister, if the lie is to keep a secret. It is a bizarre institution. They should pull it down, salt the earth, and start again to create a new Prime Minister's department, because the culture there is utterly rotten. It's not about the public interest. It's about, serving the government in a very narrow, particular way. About they don't see a broader interest in transparency. They don't see a broader interest in honesty.
Chris, thank you. That's Chris Cook, senior reporter at the Financial Times. Michaela has called in from Lincoln. Welcome to the show, Michaela. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Did you? We just played the clip. Did you see the clip of Boris Johnson saying all of that?
I did, and I found it absolutely abhorrent. It was disgusting. Because I would like to know, would he still be smiling if he had to have endured some of the experiences that we had to during COVID, which was, one of them was my friend phoning me up from A&E, crying her heart out because she was actually experiencing a miscarriage and her husband wasn't allowed to go in with her. And my mother-in-law, suffering from COPD, couldn't have her two grandchildren with her because, to see her. And also, for goodness sake, even the Queen at the funeral of Prince Phil didn't even have her family around her. And also, it must have been a really good party if he can't even remember if he was there or not. Because I know where I was, and I know where my friend was, and I know where I was when my friend phoned me, and I know where I was when my children couldn't go and see their grandmother. And I think if you're seriously turning around saying you don't know if you were at a party or not, it must have either been a really good party or you're just a liar.
What do you think it is?
A liar. Barefaced, horrible liar. How dare you turn around to us and say we can't do this, we can't do that. We miss out on loved ones, people missing out on going to care homes, seeing the people they love. Can't go to hospitals out their wife's hands while they're doing one of the most horrible, enduring one of the most awful things that could ever happen. My mother-in-law passed away, and my kids will not remember their grandmother now. There's so many memories they could have had with her while she was well, and we can't have that now. My husband missed out on a good year of his mother's last year here. It's just, I can't even, and then he sits there, and as you say that, and I do remember the scene you're talking about in 40 Towers where she goes, why are you smiling? And I can picture it in my head, and it's exactly that. It's like, why are you smiling? Because it's not funny. These people are hurting. These people, you promised us things and you lied. And you've just broken your own rules because it's one rule for you and it's one rule for us. And if things aren't done about it, well, nobody's going to trust you and nobody's going to vote for you. And to be quite honest with you, I think he's lost the trust. He's lost the votes now anyway, so.
It's good to hear from you, Michaela. Thank you. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Rich in Guildford says, how does a man so devoid of honesty and integrity not only become Prime Minister but remain in a job after scandal after scandal after scandal and is never really held to account? Enough is enough. Rob says, Eddie, I've been working through the pandemic as a paramedic. I'm burnt out. I haven't been able to see my nephew learn to walk or talk. My grandmother died alone and scared, and I wasn't able to look after her or say goodbye. I'm filled with fury over the recent news. That's from Rob. What about you? 0345 6060 973. Lindsay Jackson speaks for the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice group. Welcome to the show. How are you?
A little bit wrung out after today, to be honest, Eddie. Yeah. Rather like the lady you were just talking to, Michaela.
What is it about today that's got you wrung out?
The fact that so many of us suffered so much and still followed the rules, and that Boris Johnson and his staff, after a hard day at work, felt that they needed the reward of something that was against the rules and that so few of the rest of us were doing. And the really gut-wrenching bit for me, and sorry, but my voice will break, I'm sure, when I say this, but the gut-wrenching feeling for me is, did I do the wrong thing? Did I do the wrong thing by my own mum, by not breaking the rules and by leaving her to die alone? Should I have broken those rules? Should I have ignored the Prime Minister and gone to sit with my mum as she lost her life? I didn't. I stayed home, I sat by the phone, and I waited for someone to call me to tell me that my mum had died. And to think that that man, I don't like using the word man about him, actually, because a man is a person with dignity who can be respected. And none of those apply to Boris Johnson as far as I'm concerned. That's why I'm wrung out.
Do you have any idea why he was smiling when he was asked about whether he attended the party?
No, there's something not right, isn't there? No right-minded person would form their mouth in a smile in response to a question like that. No, there's something not right. I'm not a psychiatrist. I won't attempt the answer to that one, but it's not a normal response to a question, is it, of that kind?
How often do you reflect on what your actions were around the time of your mum's death?
Oh, daily, hourly. It's never away. It's always there. She's always in my mind. And not being able to be there to support her when she needed me will never go away. That feeling will never go away.
You knew she was dying, but you had to sit by the phone.
Yes.
As you know, Boris Johnson's explanation for not answering the question is that there is an inquiry going on, and the indications, not directly from him, are that we may get that in the course of the next week or so, although if there's a police investigation, we wonder. Are you prepared to wait? Are you prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt and let's see what this independent person says about all of this?
Well, whether I'm prepared to or not is an irrelevance, isn't it? It's going on, and we're going to have to wait until the civil servant conducts her inquiry and maybe the police conduct theirs. But for me, the disturbing thing is that our Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, will not answer a question about where he was on a certain day. He doesn't need an inquiry to know where he was. I have a diary. I'm sure as hell he keeps a diary because he will want to make money out of his diary in due course. And I can tell you exactly what I was doing on May the 20th in 2020. And he knows too. And he ought to say straight out, I was not at a party, or I was at a party and I bitterly regret it. But to say we have to wait for the outcome of an inquiry, I mean, it's just treating us like children. It's ridiculous.
What sort of funeral were you able to hold for your mum? I know she died in the April, so it must have been around maybe late April or May that you had the funeral.
Yeah, we had Mum's funeral on May the 4th. The restrictions where I live were 10 people at a funeral. We decided, my brother and I, on 7, so just very close family. Me and my husband, my brother and his wife and their children, and that was it. And my mum was such a well-loved person and a real local character. There would, I lie not, there would have been hundreds of people at her funeral. And there were 7 of us, yeah. And the toughest thing was after the funeral, I couldn't even cuddle my brother. because we both wanted to follow the rules, and we just spoke briefly. And then we both got in our cars and drove in different directions. And I came home, sat in the garden with my husband, and we just talked about my mum. And it was only then that I realised how important that celebration after a funeral is, where you can bring some joy back. You can talk about the person you've lost. You can share the lovely stories and the silly things they did and the funny things that happened in life. And we didn't have any of that. We just came home and sat in the garden and talked about her quietly.
Well, see, that's your mistake, Lindsay. You see, if only you'd been working in Downing Street rather than mourning your mother, you could have invited 100 people because you'd worked really hard.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nonsense, isn't it, Eddie? It's a nonsense. And if it was only a nonsense, it would be an episode on the thick of it, wouldn't it? But it's not. This is people's lives. And I heard a Tory politician earlier today, saying that he didn't think people cared about this. I can't remember which one it was, I'm sorry. But he said, I don't think people care about this. I think people want Boris to get on with the important things. Well, sorry. Boris Johnson's number one job, the government's number one job, is to keep its citizens safe. And they failed in that. They failed in that with my mum. And they've failed in that with 175,000 other people in this country. And that's the important stuff, isn't it?
Thanks for talking to us. That's Lindsay Jackson, who speaks for the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice group.